Dear participants, I hope you have had a good break and refreshed yourself, and the sun is shining as it do in Ulm. Now we have two very interesting lectures with main topics, which are crossover topics, I think, for all the workshops we have in this afternoon. And I'm very grateful to Stefan Barth. He's a very nice and good colleague of me, and he is the coordinator of the Danube Strategy Network in Baden-Württemberg. And we are cooperating very well in this network, and he's guiding this network very well. And he's now, I'm sure, guiding you very well, moderating the two lectures and your questions. Thank you, Stefan, and up to you.
Great, thank you very much, Carmen, for giving me the courtesy to be part in this conference and in the networking. This is very kind, and just two words from me. I'm a co-founder of Agapedia Foundation. We've been active in the Danube region ever since 1995, in Romania, especially Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, also in Georgia lately, and then of course here in Baden-Württemberg. And our network, a civil society network in the USDR, we focused actually almost 5 years ago, 3 major points: solidarity, social inclusion, and change, which I really found corresponding to what where we are at so far in this conference. So I'm happy that also, you know, with Carmen and with many other actors, we currently are involved with just started 1st of July, a big Interact project with one of our major partners in the network, Diakoni Baden. We do a project, D-Care Labs, developing services in 9 Danube countries for an elderly care and an entrepreneurship approach. We do a Danube Youth Network together with Libena Foundation and the State Ministry here in Baden-Württemberg. And we also have a project already for some time running, Danube Senior Experts. So we can say we are alive and well in the networking. And now I'm happy that we can go into the lectures that we have, or Carmen activated her good networkings with Professor Rumiana Stoilova, and she will give us this first lecture on well-being, life satisfaction and happiness among older people in the countries of the Danube region. Just one moment before you start. Technically, we will have 2 lectures. Dr. Mollenkopf will come later, and for the participants, you are invited, you know, to share your questions and or in the Q&A and the chat function. So I'm also not the best expert in this, so I'm also learning. So thank you. have mercy on me. Let's put it like this, and then we'll have a discussion at the end. So please, all the participants, follow the lectures, and if you have something that it's burning on your heart, share it, and we'll try to answer it we have about 20 minutes at the end, and we can have a discussion. So I'm happy to give the floor now to Professor Stoilova, and we're looking for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barth. I'm happy to have the opportunity now to present before this very nice conference. Okay. Yes, my name is Rumiana Stoilova. I'm coming from the Bulgarian Science of Academy. I'm sociologist and at the moment chair of the Bulgarian Sociological Association. We prepared this presentation together with my colleague from Sofia University, Kaloyan Haralampiev. And I selected as a topic for this lecture, well-being, life satisfaction and happiness among older people. Perhaps this could be seen as a little bit surprising because health issues and economic issues are seen mainly as a huge problem, and there are problems, of course, but I prefer to speak about the individual and subjective well-being of of older people in Danube region. We can go to the second slide, on which Leonard, can I ask you to do this for? Okay. Let me start with the words of one Bulgarian famous novelist from the middle generation, Georgi Gospodinov. He wrote in the days of isolation, in the conditions of a COVID in April, very inspiring, in my view, words. And I will quote, "When we get out of here, let's not forget to transfer all our love to the world that was denied to us, the love that we hide while standing alone and closed. We will remind us of what happens when anthropocentrism crosses our borders and becomes anthropo-egocentrism, when greed industrializes, what happens when we forget that we are not masters, but children of this planet, not owners, but tenants, not even hosts, but late guests in its home, millions of years after the table was set." Here in these inspiring words, the word love is very strong for me, message. And now we are out of our homes, but the pandemic is still here. And we have to live on the lessons learned during this 2 months of isolation. And the next quotation on the third slide is the politician. Can we go to the third slide? I'm sorry. I can't manage from my computer, so I'm waiting. Okay, thank you. The third slide shows the view of a politician. This is Mrs. Kristalina Georgieva, the present director of International Monetary Fund. Against in April, she stated that just as the health crisis hit those people most in need of protection, so the economic crisis has hit the countries that need it the hardest from protection. With these words, Mrs. Georgieva pointed to inequalities within each society and inequalities among countries. And I will present further in the slides how these inequalities between individuals and between countries look like on the example of subjective well-being. Then we can go to the fourth slide, and here comes the opinion of scientists. The opinions of scientists presented in Journal of Aging and Social Policy. This paper will come soon, will be printed, and the reasons for writing and for doing this investigation which the scientists point are: first, in many countries exist highly problematic policy suggestions and comments revealing underlying ageist attitudes and promoting age discrimination. And we can say that this is really no, we have to return. I'm sorry. Okay. These attitudes are based on negative stereotypes on the health and functioning of older adults. As a result, the lives of older people are disvalued, including in possible triage situations and in the potential limitation of some measures against the spread of the pandemic to older adults. And the conclusion, the negative stereotypes towards older adults are unjustified and unethical. So the scientists did some propositions, and I selected just 4, which in my view are very relevant to today's conference. First, development of a more adequate response to the current pandemic in which the needs and dignity of older people are respected. Second, focusing on the use of modern information and communication technologies among older adults. Third, resisting the assumption of a paternalistic attitude towards older adults in the crisis. And fourth, fostering regional networking, mutual understanding, and solidarity between people. Thank you, Carmen, for organizing this conference, because this conference is exactly a response of the proposition number 4. And here, what say sociologists? Here is one investigation carried out in again in April 2020, and this empirical investigation compares life satisfaction in 2016 with life satisfaction nowadays, and it is not surprising that the life satisfaction is falling below the levels in 2016. That is not surprising. It's not surprising also that the life satisfaction of older people is lower compared to younger people. Here we see on this graph the results for life satisfaction in Danube countries in April 2020. It is again not surprising that the life satisfaction in Austria and Germany is higher compared to the 4 post-socialist countries, the new member states. And for Bulgarian people, I'm Bulgarian, it's not surprising that the life satisfaction in Bulgaria is at the lowest level. The more interesting questions further will be the answering of the question, why? And we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is the measurement of respondents' optimism about their future by country in April 2020. And here, for my surprise, Bulgaria is not the less optimistic country. Here are the Hungarians on the last position in this Danube comparison. Austria and Germany are very high, followed by Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia. Because optimism is an important measure to when we try to activate people and to convince them to rely on their own capacity to overcome crisis. Let's go further on slide 8. Okay, age and happiness. What I find in this respect as important is that age differences in subjective feeling of happiness are less pronounced in Germany and in Austria, and there are huge age differences in Bulgaria, Hungary, and Serbia. Why do I find this surprising? Because it's a popular joke in Bulgaria that to be happy, the easiest way is to be young, healthy, and rich. And what we see here is that age doesn't contribute to happiness, and the levels of happiness in Germany and in Austria among generations are almost on the same level. But let me look on the graph on the next slide. What is the reality for Bulgaria, Hungary, and Serbia? I will shortly explain this graph. You see the 5 compared countries. This is data from European Social Survey from 2018. And you can see that the symbols, there are 2 columns for male and female. In this respect, there are no big gender differences. And there are no big age differences in Austria and in Germany. The symbols in red and in green. But have a look on Bulgaria, on Hungary, on Serbia. You can see that with the age, the level of happiness is decreasing. The last symbol right in each column is showing the age group 65 plus. And we have 4 age groups in each column, starting from below 35, 35, 50, and 51, 65, and above 65. When you are interested in the older cohort, in the older age group, you have to take care on the symbol in the right part of each column. Okay, what we can see, conclude from this graph, is that age doesn't differentiate very strong in Austria and Germany, and differentiates and older people are less happy dramatically in Bulgaria, in Hungary, in Serbia, and there are no big gender differences. Let's go further to the next factor. When we tested with my colleague Kaloyan the different factors, we tried to test the impact on internet use on happiness, and we show the statistical significance of use of internet for increasing the subjective level of happiness. What is surprising here? Surprising here is that older people in Bulgaria and Serbia use more internet than the same age people in Austria and Germany. And you can see this on the next slide. Yes. You have the same countries, again, the same age groups, and you can compare the levels of internet use and see that the yellow symbols in the last columns for Bulgaria, for male and female, are higher compared to Austria, to Germany, especially to Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Serbia. And perhaps the question why could be asked here. And okay, my answer is because older people in Bulgaria use more Skype for connecting with their family members working abroad. This conclusion could be also supported by the fact that remittances from abroad in Bulgaria for years are higher in their share compared to foreign investments to the country. Okay, let's go further and ask the question about the missing digital abilities, because we heard from politicians in the previous session how important is the developing of digital abilities. Retired persons are the most likely to spontaneously say they don't feel the need to improve their digital skills. 36% among retired people give this answer compared to 19 to 27% of other social groups. So what is here the conclusion? The conclusion is that yes, we have to do continuous efforts to convince policymakers to include older people to adult education and to include the digital abilities into educational agenda. But it's also important to motivate older people to develop their digital skills. And on the next slide, we can see the country differences in the answers of the main barriers for improving digital skills. Bulgaria is, the main reason is I don't feel the need to improve my digital skills. Why? Why the Skype conversations happen mainly on a routine way in Bulgarian language with the family members. So not the language, not the digital skills are a barrier. Austria, the frequent answer is most frequent answer is I don't know what specific skills need to be improved and lack of time. Germany, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, lack of time. Cost as a principal barrier are considered in Hungary and Romania, and that's also important because through social programs and measures, this barrier could be faced and tried to be improved. Let's come to the next slide. Okay. Here is another factor for happiness, and we try to see how employment insecurity impacts happiness on different age groups. Why this is important? Because we see, we are speaking about solidarity between generations. And in that respect, we have really to face the situation of employment insecurity, which is less perceived as decreasing happiness on the side of older people, but it's a major obstacle for middle and younger generation. Let's look on the graph on the next slide. The next slide. Okay, here in green, you can see how often people from different age groups have experienced unemployment insecurity during their whole life. And when you look at the green column, the right green column for each country, you can see that the last from left to right column in green for people age 65 plus is highest, more than 80% among people in Austria, in Bulgaria, in all compared countries didn't experience unemployment insecurity. But this share among younger generations is lower. So we can think also about that unemployment insecurity as a factor for lower subjective feeling of happiness among younger generation and middle generation. And the last factor we tested as contributing to happiness is the perceived, on the next slide please, the assessment of the income or rent as justice. Because people who assess their income or rent as justice are feeling more happy compared to others. And what we see is that in Germany and in Austria, more older people assess their income as justice compared with the older people in Bulgaria, Hungary, and Serbia. And this is a very important conclusion in my view, because often, more frequently, the discussion is about poverty among older people, but this impact of the perceived fairness of the income is also very important. And we can see on the next graph the really very, very low level of people assessing their income as fair. This is the green column in each country. And you can see big green columns, high green columns in Austria and in Germany, higher in older generation than in younger and middle generation, but still higher compared to Bulgaria. And we started with the conclusion about Bulgarian people being very unsatisfied. And this really feeling of unjust income of people is a very strong factor for this level of low subjective feeling of happiness. Thanks for your attention, and I'm open to your questions.
Okay, so as I was following the chat and Q&A questions, there was not really much coming in. I don't know, do we have of our group a question? So I myself, thank you very much, because I very much like that you began with the novelists and then you came in with the scientists. So you see that there's always different pathways for learning. But now, would there be any question? It's for now. Otherwise, to be honest, as we are a little bit time delayed, I would move on. Or Carmen, or do you have any worries, or should we just go on for now?
Also ich glaube, es ist wichtig über die, it's important to speak about these points, but we will repeat after.
No, we can do it. We can do it afterwards in the joint discussion. But if they have no real requesting for now, I would go on in the face of the time that we have. Correct? Okay. Or any other ideas? Okay. So,
Monica, do you have a question?
Yes, yes. Eu vreau să întreb portughez. Vreau să întreb de ce în anumite grafice România nu este prezentă. În prezentarea care a făcut-o doamna profesoară Rumiana.
So the question was why at some graphs Romania was not represented.
Doch, manchmal schon.
Mrs. Stoilova, could you?
Could you repeat, because I didn't switch the translation immediately. Could you repeat the question, please?
Da. De ce în anumite grafice România nu este prezentă?
Does the translation functioning? I happen to speak Romanian, so the question was why
Romania is not
represented in
is
some
not
of
present in many graphics which were presented by Professor Rumiana.
Okay, I see. Every time, most of the graphs were elaborated on the basis of European Social Survey, and European Social Survey didn't have data for Romania. That's the only reason. But I have Romania in the first graph from the survey carried out by Eurofond, and that's the only reason, access to data.
Okay, thank you.
Mulțumesc frumos.
That came.
Thank you, Rumiana. Thank you, Professor Rumiana.
Okay.
There's another question here. Will she put it personally, Mrs. Findeisen?
I was wanting to ask you if you are thinking about measuring the effects of the resilience of older people during the COVID-19 and how they are coping with this post-traumatic situation. This would be interesting for me, at least. Thank you.
Of course, it's very interesting. I find myself this comparison between age groups is very important, and it should be taken in the future. And I said at the beginning, it's very important to see differences among individuals in the same age group, to look at differences between men and women, to look at differences between low and higher educated, because education has a very strong impact on subjective happiness. At the moment, there are different tenders for empirical work, and I'm sure there will be further data. This data, which I presented from Eurofond, is from April 2020, and I'm sure it will be new data in the next months. And this is the task of sociologists, of researchers, to analyze such data and to present this data and analysis for politicians and stakeholders. So, okay.
Okay, thank you very much for this answer. And we have one more question, I would say, and then we're going to move to the next lecture. So Mr. Markus Marquardt, he has a question, please.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for your lecture. You show us the using of the internet by older people, and I saw it's not the statistic you show is not the internet use, it is the minutes, how long the people use. So I want to ask, maybe is there a different what older people use by internet in Germany or in Bulgaria? So maybe it is not only the aspect of time that they use the internet, maybe there are also the applications, or maybe also television or other things which are used by internet in one country, and in the other country it is not used by the internet. Maybe there are also some effects. Did you know something about that?
Okay, you are right, but data on this issue is very scarce. It's really not easy to find data. What I could find was about using internet for purchasing. But I decided not to present the graph on this because on average, older people use less internet for purchasing. 75% of people say they do not use internet for purchasing. But this is really the gap, information gap in this field, and I just used data which was available to show that there is information gap, and at the same time in this field, in this respect, more and deeper investigation is needed. Just this connection between older people and digital skills is important, and I'm really happy to see that the conclusion, the propositions of scientists for putting digital abilities in the policy measures which should be applied to older people to have a really independent life and not to be just victims of this protective behavior. The next steps is to motivate older people to answer the question why, because many of older people say it's too late for me. Why do I need that? I have TV. To really motivate older people and to show it's worth to improve these digital skills a little bit will give you a new feeling of well-being, of self-confidence, of happiness.
Thank you very much, Professor Stoilova.